developing and producing sarin used to kill dozens of people in the April 4 chemical weapons attack by the government of President Bashar al-Assad. The sanctions imposed by the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control freeze all money the employees may have in U.S. financial institutions and discourage other international banks from dealing with them. The United States is sending a strong message with this action that we will not tolerate the use of chemical weapons by any actor, and we intend to hold the Assad regime accountable for its unacceptable behavior, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said in announcing the measure. Those named were targeted because they have expertise in chemistry and related fields or have worked in support of chemical weapons programs since at least 2012, Mnuchin said. It was unclear what effect the new sanctions would have on those targeted. All are listed only as working for Syria's Scientific Studies and Research Center, which itself was sanctioned, along with any person deemed to be involved with its chemical weapons activity, in an executive order signed by President George W. Bush in 2005. Additional sanctions were imposed on the center and affiliated organizations by Treasury in 2007. Although none of those named is known to have assets in this country, the sanctioning of what appeared to be mid-level, previously anonymous employees could have the effect of undermining confidence in the government. Those whose names have surfaced in relation to chemical weapons attacks and other alleged war crimes are more likely to be singled out in any post-war investigations. The sanctions are a second round of punishment by the administration for the chemical attack. On April 6th, the United States launched 59 cruise missiles against the Syrian airfield it said was the base from which the chemical airstrikes originated. Following a sarin attack in September 2013, in which hundreds of civilians were killed in a Damascus suburb, President Barack Obama unsuccessfully sought congressional approval to launch a military strike on the Syrian government. The Obama administration later negotiated an agreement with Russia that led to international removal of what were said to be all of Assad's chemical weapons stocks. Since then, the government has repeatedly been found to use bombs laden with chlorine, and international inspectors have discovered traces of sarin and other chemical weapons in some locations. But the April attack was the first time since 2013 that the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons cited incontrovertible evidence that victims were exposed to sarin or a sarin-like substance. The Scientific Studies and Research Center, established decades ago to advance and coordinate scientific activities in Syria, is officially unaffiliated with the government, but has long been assumed to be the site of chemical weapons research and development for the Syrian military. According to a French intelligence dossier published in 2013, a branch of the center composed only of Alawite military personnel, distinguished by a high level of loyalty to the regime, is responsible for producing toxic agents for military use. Alawites are members of a branch of Shiite Islam to which Assad belongs.
From New Orleans, a monument to a deadly white supremacist uprising in 1874 was removed early Monday under cover of darkness by workers in masks and bulletproof vests and covered by police snipers, as New Orleans joined the movement to take down symbols of the Confederacy and the Jim Crow South. The Liberty Palace Monument, a 35-foot granite obelisk that pays tribute to whites who tried to topple a biracial Reconstruction government installed in New Orleans after the Civil War, was taken away on a truck in pieces before daybreak after a few hours of work. In the coming days, the city will also remove statues of Confederate Generals Robert E. Lee and P.G.T. Beauregard and Confederate President Jefferson Davis, now that legal challenges have been overcome. We will no longer allow the Confederacy to literally be put on a pedestal in the heart of our city, Mayor Mitch Landrieu vowed. Of the obelisk was carried out early in the morning because of death threats and fears of disruption from supporters of the monuments. The statue was put up to honor the killing of police officers by white supremacists, Landrieu said. Of the four that we will remove, this statue is perhaps the most blatant affront to the values that make America and New Orleans strong today. Citing safety concerns, the mayor would not disclose exactly when the other monuments would be taken down, except to say that it will be done at night to avoid trouble. He said the monuments will be put in storage until an appropriate place to display them is determined. Nationally, the debate over Confederate symbols has flared since 9 Black parishioners were shot to death by an avowed racist at a church in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. South Carolina removed the Confederate flag from its State House grounds in the weeks after, and several southern cities have since considered removing monuments. The University of Mississippi took down its state flag because it includes the Confederate emblem. New Orleans is a mostly Black city of nearly 390,000. The majority Black city council voted 6-1 in 2015 to take the monuments down, but legal battles held up action. Landrieu, a white Democrat, proposed the monument's removal and rode to victory twice with overwhelming support from the city's Black residents. Opponents of the memorials say they are offensive artifacts honoring the region's racist past. Others say the monuments are part of history and should be preserved. Robert Bonner, a 63-year-old Civil War reenactor, was there to protest the monument's removal. "I think it's a terrible thing," he said. "When you start removing the history of the city, you start losing money. You start losing where you came from and where you've been." The Monument Task Committee, which sued to preserve the memorials, condemned the middle-of-the-night removal as atrocious government. The Liberty Palace Monument was erected in 1891 to commemorate the failed uprising by the Crescent City White League. 16 White Leaguers, 13 members of the White and Black Metropolitan Police Force, and 6 bystanders were among those killed in a bloody battle down Canal Street. President Ulysses Grant sent federal troops to take the city back 3 days later. New Orleans removed the memorial from busy Canal Street during a paving project in 1898 and didn't put it back up until the city was sued. Even then, it was consigned to an obscure spot on a side street. Landrieu said the memorials don't represent his city as it approaches its 300th anniversary next year. Removing the monuments is not about blame, the mayor said. Rather, he said, it's about showing the whole world that we as a city and as people are able to acknowledge, understand, reconcile, and most importantly, choose a better future, making straight what has been crooked and right what has been wrong.
Thanks, Bev. Here's a story from a columnist, Cindy Lang Kubik, in the Lincoln Journal-Star. Elizabeth Anderson is flying to Washington on Wednesday. She's never been to the Capitol. She has no place to stay. She plans to rent a scooter for the days her legs get tired. And they will get tired, because on Friday, she plans to start walking and praying for 7 days straight, starting on her 46th birthday and ending on the National Day of Prayer. When she's not walking, she'll be meeting with Senator Deb Fisher and Barry Black, the Senate chaplain. She hopes to circle the White House and the U.S. Capitol, praying as she goes. I want radical change effected in Washington, she says. I want the people there to know their decisions affect our lives. We're chatting in a College View coffee shop, and Elizabeth shows me her notebook, pages filled with plans, a theme for each day, and the Bible verses to bolster it. Prayers for wisdom for the Senate. Getting wisdom is the wisest thing you can do, and whatever else you do, develop good judgment. Prayers for knowledge for the House. The mind of the prudent acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. Prayers for government programs at risk of being cut. In everything, therefore, treat people the same way you want them to treat you. Her word for day 5, empathy. She's traveling on faith, Elizabeth says. Then the woman who knows her Bible verses recites one. When God makes a vision, he always makes provision. With that, I have the utmost peace, she says, drinking tea and talking with her hands. She also has a GoFundMe page. Elizabeth is a lifelong member of Allen Chapel, singing soprano in the Seventh-day Adventist choir, swaying beside her mom every Saturday. She worked as an academic coach at Union College for 16 years, a job she loved. But then her body started hurting and she was diagnosed with a connective tissue disease and, most recently, pancreatitis. She hit bottom in 2013, she says. I lost my health. I lost my job. I lost my apartment. I was literally losing my mind. She contemplated suicide. It's important for her to share this part of the story, she says, because I know what it's like to be in the depths of despair. Even then, she listened for that still small voice. She thought of the promises of the Bible, nothing in your life shall be wasted. She listened to the words of preachers and heard hope in music. And then, this winter, she read a book. The book is a 40-day prayer challenge called Draw the Circle by Mark Batterson. She didn't want to read it. Note, she read the book after she joined a prayer ministry group she didn't want to join. But the book changed her life, she says. She'd prayed since she was a girl, but she never thought about the power of prayer the way she does now. She'd been worrying since the November election, when suddenly the world seemed so uncertain, and things she depended on and cared about seemed at risk of going away. She worried about Medicare and the Department of Education and the work of Health and Human Services, so she drew a circle around our government in her mind. She was feeling a need to pray more and more, explained Corey P. Douglas, pastor of Allen Chapel. She began to pray for our leaders symbolically. Elizabeth shared her prayers with fellow church members. One of my friends said, "Why don't you actually go there and pray for them?" Ridiculous, Elizabeth thought. I'm pretty sure I said this out loud. I'm on disability. I don't have any money. I am not going. But then she prayed the way she'd been praying since she started the book, listening and waiting for an answer. She made a deal with God. Show me a sign. The sign, Joshua and the Battle of Jericho. If she'd read anything about Joshua and the Battle of Jericho, if she heard someone utter the words, she'd consider it a nod from God. One morning she opened that book she didn't want to read, and there was Joshua. In case you've forgotten, Joshua walked around the city of Jericho for 7 days with the priests, blowing their ram horns until the walls fell down. If that wasn't a burning bush moment, a few days later, a church friend mentioned the Bible story she planned to share with her class. You guessed it. Allen Chapel is selling T-shirts as a fundraiser now, Jericho Walk of Faith, to help Elizabeth on her prayer journey. Pastor Douglas designed the shirts. We want to help her in any way we can, he said. We've made phone calls to sister churches in the area. Some of them are going to join her and chronicle the event. The church hopes to bring the prayer walk to Lincoln one day, too, the pastor said. We're really trying to make this more than a one-time thing. But the inaugural walk is on the horizon. One woman and her mission. It's not about denigrating our leaders, she said. What I want people to understand is I can't live without you, and you can't live without me. Elizabeth Anderson will board a plane Wednesday with her faith and her list of Bible verses and a new pair of Crocs. I cannot wait, she says. I cannot wait to go.
From Las Vegas. Las Vegas is preparing to be the first city in the nation with vending machines dispensing clean needles in an effort to help combat the spread of hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and HIV, while also possibly leading some drug users into treatment. 3 machines will be available for users starting in May. The pilot program is a coordinated effort between Trace B Exchange, the Southern Nevada Health District, and the Nevada AIDS Research and Education Society to discourage the sharing of needles among users. Track B Exchange Program Director Rick Reich said that to participate in the vending machine program, users would have to fill out a form for the sponsoring groups and obtain an 8-digit identification number to ensure confidentiality and track their use. Each kit will contain sterile syringes and needles, along with a compartment for used needles that can be disposed of safely at the machines. But unlike snack, pop, or movie rental machines left in open spaces, these $15,000 machines will be inside the 3 facilities and would be accessed only during the hours the buildings are open for business. Reich said the cost of each kit was under $10, but they would be free for users. Reich said putting one of the vending machines inside the Community Counseling Center of Southern Nevada was designed to allow some drug abusers to interact with trained counselors if they decided they wanted to get help. Bozarth, executive director of the counseling center, said his staff had been undergoing training in anticipation of reaching drug abusers who may use the vending machines and learn about treatment options. I think we're optimistic it will help, Bozarth said, but it's such a new program and we want to make sure we're prepared. Needle exchange programs have been used successfully throughout the world, with several nations adopting vending machine technology into their mix to curb the spread of blood-borne pathogens. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has reported the effectiveness of needle exchange programs, and the North American Needle Exchange Network counts 228 syringe service programs in 35 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. The CDC reported on a study that looked at the effects of New York's exchange program on the prevalence of hepatitis C infections between 1990 and 2001 and found that the needle exchange program reduced the disease's prevalence from 80% to 59% among intravenous drug users. Needle and syringe possession was illegal in Nevada until 2013, when the legislature repealed the law. Pharmacies can sell needles and syringes, but have discretion about who can purchase them. Reich said the machines helped remove some of the stigma faced by users who felt uncomfortable during transactions with pharmacists, some of whom may question why the syringe and needle are needed. Vending machines are not born with a bias, Reich said. A machine doesn't have a personality and doesn't care how you look when you approach it.
Thanks. From the Journal Star, as promised, owners of the 4 beer stores in White Clay are appealing last week's decision by the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission to deny renewal of their liquor licenses. Pardon me. An attorney for the beer stores said Monday that appeal filings were being sent to Lancaster County District Court via overnight mail. In copies of the filings shared with media, attorney Andrew Snyder of Scottsbluff argues the Liquor Commission's decision was arbitrary and capricious, not supported by evidence, and contrary to Nebraska law. Snyder also asks the court to allow the beer stores to remain open until the appeal is resolved to shield them from irreparable harm and injury in the form of lost income. A judge in the case has yet to be assigned. The Liquor Commission last week decided not to renew the store's licenses after they expire Sunday, citing concerns about law enforcement in White Clay. The unincorporated village has 8 official residents, but its 4 liquor stores sell millions of cans of beer each year, much of it to residents of South Dakota's Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, where alcohol is banned. The beer store owners argue the Liquor Commission considered inappropriate evidence and violated their due process rights by ordering them to reapply for their liquor licenses rather than receiving automatic renewal. The stores are Arrowhead Inn, State Line Liquor, D&S Pioneer, and Jumping Eagle Inn. Unless a judge suspends the commission's decision, the stores will be forced to close Sunday. It's possible the appeal could reach the Nebraska Supreme Court. If that happens, Snyder and David Domina of Omaha, the attorney representing 5 Sheridan County residents who oppose the beer stores, said they expect the issue to remain unresolved for up to 2 years.
We're going to move now to local legislative news. Here's a story you've probably heard a little bit about already. Dre Hubbard's parents know where her birthday parties will be every year. We're going to the zoo, Dre's father said, Justin Hubbard, a day after Dre was born at the Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium. We're planning on having her birthday annually at the zoo. Kamika Hubbard was on the zoo train Sunday afternoon when she went into labor. She told her mother she didn't think she could make it to the car before giving birth. She was right. She had Dre about 3:30 p.m. near the Holland Meadowlark Amphitheater, which opens this summer just north of the Desert Dome. Kamika, 24, and her husband, 27, spoke with reporters Monday afternoon at the Nebraska Medical Center. Newborn Dre, 5 pounds, 5 ounces, and 19 inches long, was with them. Justin said Kamika was trying to speed things along by walking at the zoo Saturday and Sunday. Her due date, he said, was Mother's Day. We were on the train, and I was telling my husband and my mother that I was having contractions, and they were getting closer and closer together, Kamika said. He kept telling me I'm over-exaggerating. Just calm down and relax. Kamika's mother took 2 of Justin's other children to get ice cream. Kamika started walking up a hill with Justin, who was holding their 1-year-old son, when her water broke. I got like 5 more steps, and I was like, Her head, Kamika said. And he said, what do you mean, her head? Then he was like, oh my gosh, she's having the baby. Kamika was still standing when Dre emerged from the womb. Justin, a customer service specialist for a commodities broker, caught the child and wrapped her in a sweater. I mean, I went to certified nurses assistant classes, but I wasn't set up for this, Justin said. But prior to that, she had been telling me, you're going to deliver this baby at home. The birth took about 2 minutes from the time the water broke, the Hubbard said. A woman who said she is a nurse rushed over to help, but it was a done deal, Kamika said. A man stepped up and helped Kamika lie on the ground. Someone notified the first aid station, and nurse Crystal Hartman responded. Hartman, a registered nurse from Children's Hospital and Medical Center, said she has staffed the medical center's zoo station for 17 years. Dre, she said, was the first human baby she had seen delivered there. We got a call from the radio stating there was a lady in labor down at the north gate, Hartman said. I showed up, but they had it taken care of. So my job was waiting until 9/11 got there and making sure the baby and mom were safe. Justin said his daughter started cooing immediately after birth as he cradled her in his arms. Her arrival, he said, was the most beautiful thing a man can see. The birth attracted quite a crowd. Neither parent noticed they had become the center of attention until Dre was safely wrapped up. When I looked up, Justin said, I could see tons of people. I saw people from the side, like videotaping. It was unique. Just the love that surrounded made it even better. The story will be one the Hubbard family tells over and over, the parents said. I'm going to have to tell it wherever I go, Justin said. I'm still in that aha moment, like this didn't happen, but it did. I'm still in that shock phase. Dre has been chosen as the baby's name beforehand, the parents said, but her nickname is appropriate, Pooh Bear. The family received a year's pass to the zoo in a gift basket with stuffed animals and other commemorative items. Children's Hospital also delivered a basket to the Hubbards with items for both mother and child. Dre is expected to go home Wednesday. Her dad stared down into her tiny face on Monday and called the child a precious gift from God. It was a crazy experience, Justin said. I wouldn't trade it for the world. As for mom, I never thought I'd be having a baby in a public place, Kamika said with a laugh.
Thank you. A number of senators with educational experience as teachers or administrators joined Senator Ernie Chambers of Omaha on Monday in an effort to derail a bill that would allow teachers to use physical force to control violent students. The bill, LB 595, introduced by Senator Mike Green of North Platte, was caught in a filibuster after 3 hours of debate and stood in danger of disappearing from this year's legislative agenda. I don't know if I have 33 votes, Green said, following adjournment for the day. That's the number required to break a filibuster, and Speaker Jim Scheer of Norfolk will seek assurance from Green that he can produce that kind of support before he's willing to return the bill to the legislative agenda. Green has argued that teachers want and need the legal assurance they can use physical force and restraint when it's absolutely necessary to control a violent student. The Nebraska State Education Association, which represents teachers throughout the state, testified in favor of the bill at its public hearing. Beg your pardon, I sort of lost the place here for just a minute. Public hearing. But Senator Roy Baker of Lincoln, a former teacher, principal, and longtime school superintendent, has offered an amendment to the bill that would simply assure teachers may use physical contact short of corporal punishment to preserve order and control. Senator Lynn Waltz of Fremont, a former teacher, said she strongly opposes the bill, arguing that it does nothing to address the root of the problem, which often stems from life circumstances beyond the control of the student. Some students may have had no parental support, she said, and others may not have eaten at all that day or perhaps been bullied or teased before the incident of violent behavior occurred. The legislature's focus should be on addressing the lack of behavioral mental health programs that could help resolve some of those issues and engage the entire family, Waltz said. Senator Tony Vargas of Omaha, a former teacher, supported Baker's proposal and said it's important to train teachers to create a welcoming environment in the classroom with instruction that includes skills in safe restraint. Senator Rick Kolowski of Omaha, a longtime high school principal, also supported Baker's amendment. Chambers offered a motion to send the bill back to the Education Committee, but it failed on a 14-24 vote. Green argued that an increasing breakdown of discipline in the classroom prompted him to introduce the bill. An NSEA survey demonstrated that 82% of its members believe that's a problem that needs to be addressed, he said. Senator Joni Albrecht of Thurston said an unusually swift response to the questionnaire represented a cry for help. Senator Tom Breese of Albion said the legislature should give teachers the tools they need to control the classroom. Green said he can count 25 votes for sure in support of his bill, but will check it out to see if he can reach the 33 vote requirement imposed by the filibuster. But he has no doubt that his bill is needed, he said. There is a problem out there, Green said.
Also from the legislature, a bill requiring Nebraska schools to adopt policies in support of parenting and pregnant students will need to negotiate a detour if it's going to cross the finish line. Legislative Bill 427, sponsored by Senator Tony Vargas of Omaha, was scheduled for a third and final vote Monday when an unfriendly amendment was filed by Senator Steve Erdman of Baird. The amendment resulted in the bill being skipped over for the day because of a procedural rule. Erdman said rural schools already find ways to take care of pregnant or nursing students without being told to do so by the legislature. His amendment would limit the requirement to school districts in Omaha and Lincoln. It's not relevant for us, Erdman said Monday. School board members are calling me saying, we don't need it, one size does not fit all. When the bill returns to the agenda, Erdman will file a motion to return the bill to a second round debate where his amendment could be discussed and voted upon. However, if the motion to return the bill fails, the bill would remain on final round consideration for a vote. Erdman tried to amend the bill during second round debate to make the bill's requirement optional for schools. The amendment received 21 votes, 4 fewer than it needed. Vargas said he opposes Erdman's latest amendment. He said he doesn't think the real challenges facing parenting students fall along an urban-rural divide. All kids in Nebraska deserve policies that support them so they can finish school, he said. The measure says K-12 schools must accommodate student mothers who breastfeed. They must provide an appropriate place for students to pump breast milk and store it. The bill also requires the State Department of Education to put out a model policy for accommodating pregnant and parenting students that local districts could adapt. Vargas said statistics show that 70% of teen mothers leave school and do not return after having a child. Nebraska school districts have varied policies about pregnant and parenting students, according to surveys done by the ACLU of Nebraska. Only 17% have formal policies that address the breastfeeding needs of students, although many work with students on a case-by-case basis.
Thanks, Bev. From the legislature, senators will get down to business Tuesday with their most important task of the session, approving a state budget. When they get through their debate, with which Appropriations Chairman John Stinner predicts will be rousing and robust, it may be changed somewhat, but still close to the $8.9 billion proposal. The committee varied somewhat with Governor Pete Ricketts in priorities, but very little in the budget's bottom line. This year, there are major questions among some state senators about spending and how money was moved around to balance the proposed budget. That was clear when the mainline fund transfer and cash reserve budget bills came out without unanimous approval of the 9-member Appropriations Committee. Senator John Kuhn of Hartwell was one of those committee members who voted against the bills because of the long-term implications of using about $381 million as one-time cash transfers for ongoing expenses. As we make that choice, we have to recognize that means 2 years from now, we have to backfill and fill that hole with the revenue growth that we have, he said. When debate by the legislature begins, Stinner said, senators will probably propose changes in cuts and revenue. Senators got to look Friday at the details of the budget proposal and then sat through a briefing on Monday morning. When times are tough and dollars are short, it's absolutely critical to set priorities, Stinner told senators. Those priorities include reducing property taxes and adding funding for the Department of Correctional Services, K-12 education, and justice reinvestment. The $1 billion projected budget shortfall at the beginning of the session was caused by an abrupt decline in the average growth in tax collections of the previous 2 years. At 0.8%, it was the third lowest 2-year growth in the past 36 years. The Appropriations Committee has recommended using $248 million of the rainy day fund for this budget, $173 million going to the general fund to balance the budget, and $75 million to pay for a new medical intake and food services project in Lincoln for the Department of Corrections. That would leave the fund at $379.5 million at the end of the 2019 fiscal year. Our objective now is to preserve a $400 million rainy day fund, Stinner said. Why? Because it's a hedge. The committee doesn't know what kind of a revenue shortfall there will be for the 2019-21 budget, and so it must be prepared, he said. The forecasting board meets Wednesday afternoon. If the board would project something like $50 million less revenue, the committee will have to have another skull session to discuss strategy, he said. For the Department of Roads, the budget includes an average 28.1 cents fuel tax in fiscal year 17-18 and 29.6 in fiscal year 18-19. Still, increased highway construction funding is partially offset by the committee's decision to transfer $15 million each year from the Roads Operations Cash Fund to the General Fund. I know I'm going to have a fistfight on roads. I get that. I'm going to have a fistfight on livestock and a whole bunch of other things, Stinner said. There's something to make everybody angry in this. Senator Jim Smith said the degrees of difference between the committee's and the governor's proposals are small, but the proposal to transfer $30 million from the Roads Operation Cash Fund is an issue for him, even if it's not a dividing point. We'll have some constructive conversation over that, Smith said. We worked very hard on the roads funding to get us to the point where we are, and I don't think we want to go backward on that. Senator Paul Schumacher of Columbus predicts the budget debate, which will last days, could get heated. That happens, he said, anytime senators have to face reality. What's absent from all of this is the fact that you're doing nothing on the revenue side of the equation to cut the various tax credit programs, to look at responsibly trying to offset this with some revenue recovery, he said. He's talking about tax cuts and tax spending over the past 10 years of about $750 million. And we're doing nothing to review the wisdom of those, he said. $750 million now would make a big difference in these numbers. The state doesn't monitor what these tax programs end up costing compared to what they're projected to cost, he said, and in most cases, they cost more than projected. Indexing of income taxes for inflation is costing the state more than $10 million a year and growing, he said. Here are some highlights of the 17 to 19 budget. 1% average budget growth compared to 0.9% in Ricketts' proposal, $40 million to the Property Tax Credit Cash Fund, $11 million for justice reinvestment to help reduce crowding in prisons, no increase in provider rates for behavioral health, developmental disability, and Medicaid services, and 3% reduction for hospitals and doctors. $62 million general fund increase in state aid to schools, $35.6 million increase in Medicaid, $32 million increase in state salaries and health insurance, $15.4 million increase for corrections staffing, programs, and equipment, $14 million increase in the Nebraska homestead exemption, $24.7 million in base reductions to state agencies, $13 million reduction to the University of Nebraska, $9 million reduction in foster care contracts with private providers of relative kinship placements, and $9.2 million reduction in use of county jails for state prisoners.
Officials in Davenport, Iowa are nearly ready to go live with cameras intended to deter crime as a part of a pilot program that could expand to other parts of the city. The cameras were installed on a half-mile stretch of road west of downtown in Davenport about 2 weeks ago, the Quad City Times reported. They're expected to be operating in a week. The city bought the equipment for more than $53,600 in November from Chicago-based CDWG. It will record around the clock so police can review live or past footage in the event of an incident. Someone is not going to be actively watching this live, said Clay Merritt, Capitol budget analyst. But if someone were to see an incident and call it in and they knew, say, it was a male wearing a red shirt with blue jeans and a white Ford Ranger, our police department could use that information as a tool to help identify that vehicle or person. Merritt said the last phase is to test its information technology infrastructure. We just need to do some internal testing on our server, firewall, and our wireless connectivity. The cameras will also give the city's traffic engineers access to the footage so they can do traffic counts. Johnny's Meat Market co-owner Ken Doppler said it seems the problems have decreased on the street with the mere discussion of cameras. If anything, that might also help with city engineers and those who do studies to notice the traffic patterns, he said. You've got potential problems, and when there are problems, you'll have record of it.
Thank you, Bev. From the Lincoln Journal-Star, Nebraska has a new target in mind to help keep monarch butterflies and other pollinators off the federal endangered species list. Grow 125 million new milkweed stems in the state by 2020. That's precisely 1/12 of the mark a Committee of North American Wildlife Managers set in 2015 for all 12 states in the Corn Belt that are frequented by monarchs. Amassing that much milkweed is a tall task. A single plant averages about 7 stems. Participation by many groups may be the only way to conserve migration and breeding habitat for monarchs, avert a threatened or endangered listing of the species, and prevent decline of other pollinators, a consortium of butterfly boosters and other interested parties wrote in a recently released draft plan. The plan was crafted by staff at the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission with input from dozens of organizations and businesses, including 55 who sent representatives to a summit on monarchs in Lincoln in February 2016. A copy of the draft plan is available on the Commission's website, and public input is welcome. Monarchs winter in the Mexican highlands, coating a tiny patch of mountainous forests with millions of brilliant orange and black wings from October through March. In spring, they fan out east of the Continental Divide, with females laying their tiny greenish-white eggs on milkweed plants and feasting on other flowers along the way. But the eastern monarch population has dropped an estimated 90% in the past 2 decades, in large part because of habitat loss. That includes the conversion of a staggering 53 million acres of grassland, an area about the size of Kansas, to cropland in the Great Plains since 2009, according to World Wildlife Fund data cited in the draft plan. While many plants can provide nectar for adult pollinators, milkweed is particularly important to monarchs because it contains cardiac glycosides, which are toxins to most other creatures and protect adult monarchs and their caterpillars against would-be predators. Monarchs also lay eggs on invasive species such as the Louise's or European swallowwort, but those plants cannot sustain monarch larvae. Efforts to help monarchs, such as planting milkweed and other flowering plants, and careful application of herbicides and pesticides can also benefit other pollinators that are potentially at risk. Those include bumblebees, married underwing and Whitney underwing moths, and less lionized butterflies such as the tawny crescent, regal fritillary, Colorado Rita dotted blue, Iowa skipper, mottled dusky wing, and two-spotted skipper, Buchholz, black dash, and Otto skipper. Several Corn Belt states have been meeting periodically to come up with a regional plan to conserve pollinators, but a final agreement is probably years away. Nebraska decided to be proactive, said Melissa Piniella, a fish and wildlife biologist with the Game and Parks Commission, who focuses on at-risk species. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has already been petitioned to consider listing monarchs as threatened or endangered. Piniella said the federal government will wait until at least 2019 to decide, after assessing states' progress at improving butterfly populations. Nebraska's plan includes dozens of recommendations, such as planting additional milkweed on public lands, such as state parks, trail corridors, and golf courses, providing incentives for farmers to incorporate milkweed and other pollinator habitat into their land, even adjusting right-of-way mowing schedules to protect plants at critical times. I think a big part of it is just an awareness and an acceptance of milkweed. That milkweed is an important part of our ecosystem, Piniella said. Unlike some other wildlife, just about anyone can get involved in helping monarchs because they don't need large expanses of prairie to thrive. It's a great opportunity for homeowners or gardeners, Pinella said. Conservation groups are also chipping in on a larger scale. Pheasants Forever recently awarded grants to 19 landowners across the state to plant habitat for honeybees, native bees, and monarchs. Applications for that program, which is new this year, were very competitive, said Kelsey Werman, state coordinator for Pheasants Forever. The Game and Parks Commission is planting more than 25,000 milkweed seedlings along the Cowboy Trail and other land owned by the commission, a project funded by the National Fish and Wildlife Federation and the Nebraska Environmental Trust. The commission is also seeking federal money to restore pollinator habitat on private land managed by the Northern Prairies Land Trust and the Prairie Plains Institute. Private companies also provide grants for entities interested in restoring pollinator habitat, such as Bayer's Feed a Bee program. There are a number of projects that are in the works, Pinella said. Now here's a little issue about how to help. Urban gardeners interested in planting milkweed can find more information online at Outdoor Nebraska, that's all one word, outdoornebraska.gov/milkweed tracker. Rural landowners who want to plant pollinator habitat in their fields may contact Ashley Weyers of Pheasants Forever, 308-850-8395, or aweyers@pheasantsforever.org.
Scammers have been calling Sarpy County residents and telling them they have missed jury duty and will face arrest if they don't pay a fine, the Sarpy County Sheriff's Office said Monday. 2 people have been bilked out of money over the past few days, Sarpy County Sheriff's Lieutenant Chris Tosher said. The scammers use the names of Sarpy County Sheriff's deputies. They tell people that an arrest warrant for missing jury duty can be cleared by paying a fine of between $500 and $1,000. People are instructed to buy a prepaid money card, then call the scammer with the card number and access code to clear the warrant. Officials said the Sarpy County Sheriff's Office does not solicit money over the phone or conduct official business in this way. Any activity relating to the scam should be reported to the Sarpy County Sheriff's Office at 402-593-2288.
Thanks, Jane. A bill that would allow ex-felons to vote without a 2-year wait after their sentences are complete won approval from state senators Monday, but not by a lot. It will now move to Governor Pete Ricketts' desk for his signature. The legislature voted 27-13 on final reading, not enough for a 30-vote veto override if one comes. The bill, LB 75, came out of the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee on a 5-1 vote, but was questioned by Committee Chairman John Morante. Morante said he's concerned not only about the question of the bill's constitutionality and who has the authority to restore civil rights, but also that certain felonies, such as fraud, and in particular voter fraud, would make the restoration of those rights not in the state's best interest. Other conservative states, including Texas and Nevada, have repealed their post-sentence voting bans. A study by Nebraskans for Civic Reform, Removing the Wait, Disenfranchisement in Nebraska, showed Nebraska is depriving more than 7,000 citizens who have completed their felony sentences of the right to vote. The total number, including those in prison and jail on parole or probation, is more than 17,500. 1 of every 18 Black Nebraskans, 5.6%, is deprived of the right to vote, compared with 1 of 81, 1.2% total adults in the state.
2 Southwest Iowa teenagers were seriously injured Saturday night when their all-terrain vehicle overturned in rural Page County. At 7:55 p.m., Page County Sheriff's Office deputies reported to a location about 1 mile south and west of New Market. The Sheriff's Office said its investigation indicated that Brody Mathis, 13, of Shenandoah, was operating a 2015 Polaris ATV. The sheriff's office said Brody told the deputies he had attempted to turn at a high rate of speed and the brakes locked. The ATV then rolled, and Brody and passenger Blas Rendon, 15, also of Shenandoah, were tossed from the vehicle. Brody was taken to Clarinda Regional Health Center in Clarinda and then transferred by medical helicopter to the Nebraska Medical Center in Omaha with undisclosed injuries, the sheriff's office said. On Monday evening, he was in fair condition, according to a spokesman from Nebraska Medical. Blas was taken to Clarinda Regional Health Center, also with undisclosed injuries. Information on his condition was unavailable Monday evening. The incident remains under investigation, the sheriff's office said.
Thanks. Here are a few short items about bills approved Monday in the legislature. First of all, Nebraska will form a task force to address public health issues in White Clay under a measure LB 407 by Lincoln Senator Patty Pansing Brooks. White Clay is an unincorporated village with 8 residents and 4 beer stores, which are frequented by residents of the nearby Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, where alcohol is banned. The fate of the beer stores remains uncertain following the Nebraska Liquor Control Commission decision last week to deny their liquor licenses. There's a Biosciences Innovation Act. The bill, LB 641, would create the Bioscience Innovation Cash Fund to be administered by the Department of Economic Development to provide financial assistance to bioscience-related businesses applying for financial assistance under the Business Innovation Act. With Bill LB 207, the Inspector General would be able to release a final report based on an investigation to bring awareness to systematic issues within child welfare if it's in the best interest of the public. Also, no personnel action could be taken against an employee for disclosing wrongdoing or for providing information or testimony pursuant to an investigation by the office. Something about poaching penalties. People caught hunting illegally in Nebraska may face stiffer penalties, but could avoid jail time if they live in other states and can't immediately pay a fine. The bill, LB 566, will make Nebraska a member of the Interstate Wildlife Violator Compact, which improves communication between wildlife officials in different states. The measure also increases some poaching penalties. And immunity for reporting overdoses. People who seek emergency help for themselves or another person because of a drug overdose will be immune from prosecution for drug possession under a bill LB 487 sponsored by Lincoln Senator Adam Morfeld. The measure also protects emergency responders from liability if they administer the drug naloxone to treat an apparent opioid overdose. Lawmakers also approved a bill, LB 34, that would allow any political party with 10,000 or more registered voters to remain recognized in the state regardless of how its candidates perform in statewide elections. The measure is sponsored by Senator Laura Ebke of Crete, the legislature's only Libertarian member, and backed by the Libertarian Party of Nebraska. And finally, the Tourism Commission revamped. The Nebraska Tourism Commission will be reformed to include representatives of 11 geographic districts from across the state under a measure LB 222 by Senator John Stinner of Gering. At least 7 members must be affiliated with the tourism industry. It's time now to turn to the obituaries. And before we begin, I want to say that the obituaries are brought to you today by SEI Medical Alert. Medical Alert monitoring 24/7, 365 at the push of a button. SEI, your local medical alert provider. Call 402-333-3233 or visit seimedicalalert.com for more information. We begin with the obituaries in the Lincoln Journal-Star. Yosri H. Bichet, 81 years old, of Lincoln. He came originally from Egypt. There will be a prayer service 7 p.m. Wednesday at Roper and Sons, and a funeral service at 11 a.m. Thursday, April 27th at the Annunciation Orthodox Church on North 63rd Street. Helen Charlotte Howard Chamberlain, 87 years old. I should have another page here. Her first service, there have been 2 services already. The first service was held at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Newport Beach, California in January, and a second was held at the First Presbyterian Church in North Platte in February, and she has been buried in North Platte. Coble, Harriet Ann Coble, 82. Harriet Ann Rugg Coble, that maiden name was R-U-E-G-G, died in Nashville. She was a member of the American Association of University Women, and donations can be made to the AAUW Scholarship Fund. Damrow, Clifford Damrow, 78. He died on April 23rd. This is all the information we have, but I'm sure more will follow. Deerberger, Stephen P. Deerberger, died on April 19th. There will be a memorial service at 2 o'clock on Friday, April 28th at the Zabka Funeral Home. Memorials are asked to the Garland Volunteer Fire Department or Blue Valley Pet Rescue of Seward. Ike, Kelly S. Ike, 59. A celebration of her life will be at 10 a.m. Wednesday, April 26th at Farmer and Son Funeral Home in Geneva. Eisenbarth, Donald Carl Eisenbarth. He was born in 1931, so that means that he was about 85 or 86 years old. Don is survived by his son, and other relatives. Funeral Mass, 10:30 a.m. Wednesday, the 26th, at Church of the Holy Spirit in Plattsmouth. Memorials are asked to the Plattsmouth Volunteer Firefighters Association or Masses at Church of the Holy Spirit. Roby Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Gayed, Asher Rayanne Gayed, 4 months old, daughter of Jason and McKaylee. Memorials, the funeral service will be 3 o'clock Wednesday the 26th at Roper and Sons Chapel on O Street. Memorials are asked to the family. Gillespie, Esther S.E. Wilhelm Gillespie, 94. There will be a visitation at the Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home on Wednesday in the evening. The graveside service will be held at 11 a.m. on Thursday, April 27th at Lincoln Memorial Park Cemetery. Meet at gate 2 at 11 a.m. In lieu of flowers, a donation may be made in Esther's name to the charity of your choice. Hanson, George Hanson, 68. A public remembrance for George Hanson will be held from 2 to 4 on Wednesday the 26th at Flatwater Stables, the Swan Theater, at Wyuka Cemetery. In lieu of flowers, memorials may be made to Eastmont Towers or Flatwater Shakespeare. Jensen, Gary C. Jensen, 72. Mr. Jensen was a veteran. The funeral will be 10:30 Tuesday, April 25th at Buthurst, Mazer, and Love Funeral Home. Casual attire is suggested. Jones, Forrest Keith Jones, 93, of Lincoln, formerly of Auburn. The funeral will be 11 a.m. Wednesday, the 26th at St. Paul Lutheran Church in Auburn. Hall Funeral Chapel in Auburn is providing the arrangements. Kelly, Roland G. Kelly, 82, of Oto. He was a veteran of the Korean War. The celebration of life will be held at 2 p.m. on May 7th at the Loft Theater in Manly. Casual attire is requested. Memorials to the family's choice. Fusselman Allen Harvey Funeral Home in Syracuse is in charge of arrangements. Kojal, Stanley E. Kojal, 94. Services will be 10:30 Friday the 28th at St. Michael's Catholic Church in Tarnov. McCown Funeral Home is in charge of arrangements. Krause, Melvin F. Krause, 91, of Geneva. Funeral services will be 10:30 a.m. Thursday at the United Methodist Church in Geneva. Farmer and Sons Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. There will be a graveside service at 1 p.m. at the Geneva Public Cemetery. Memorials are suggested to the United Methodist Church in Geneva. Kudlacek, Robert B. Kudlacek, 96 years old. There will be graveside service with military honors at 1 o'clock today at the Wilbur Czech Cemetery. In lieu of flowers, memorials will be directed by the family. There will be a later celebration of life service to be announced. Heafy, Hoffman, Dora Cutler in Omaha is handling the arrangements. Lewis, Philip Martin Lewis Jr., 86, formerly of Sutton. Graveside services will be 10:30 Wednesday at the Sutton Cemetery. Military honors by the American Legion, Argonne Post number 61. Memorials are asked to Zion Lutheran Church in Sutton, the American Legion, Argonne Post number 61 in Sutton, the Grand Lodge at the Preserve Scholarship Fund in Lincoln, or the donor's choice. Moyer, Candy K. Moyer, 66. A reception honoring Candy's life will be held from 4 to 8 p.m. Thursday at the Moyer residence, 5901 Spruce Street. Memorials are asked to the family to pay medical expenses, or the Nebraska Humane Society, or the Family Violence Council. Kramer Funeral Home in Omaha is handling the arrangements. Neighbor, Marie Neighbor, 105 years old, of Lakewood, Colorado. That's all the information we have right now. H. Pearson, 94 years old, of Davenport. A more complete notice will probably follow. Price, Legene L. Price, 84, of Lincoln. Memorial service will be 1 o'clock Saturday at First Lutheran Church in Lincoln. In lieu of flowers, memorials can be sent to the family for designation to the harvest of books. Roper and Sons is handling the arrangements. Rafferty, Lois Rafferty, age 74. Funeral services will be 11 a.m. Thursday the 27th at Trump Funeral Services in Lincoln. Rawson, Barbara J. Rawson, 64, of Lincoln, a private family burial at Fairview Cemetery. Celebration of Life service will be 11 a.m. Thursday the 27th at Roper and Sons on 43rd and O. Reynolds, Jeffrey Scott Reynolds, 55, of Plymouth. Memorial service will be 10 a.m. Wednesday the 26th at First Trinity Lutheran Church in rural Beatrice. Griffith's Hovendick Chapel in Beatrice is where the visitation will be. Memorials are asked to the Tri-County Legion Baseball Organization and the Tri-County Education Foundation. Roth, Marvin Roth, 86, of Lincoln. Marshall Funeral Chapel in Nebraska City is handling the arrangements, and there we have no further details. Solomon, Richard and Marion Solomon. Richard was a veteran, and they have been buried, but in lieu of, there will be, in lieu of flowers, you may send memorials to the family for later designation. There will be a memorial service at 3 p.m. Friday at May 5th at Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home. And finally, Turek Mares, or M-A-R-E-S, Lillian Turek Mares, 97 years old, of Seward. That's all the information we have right now.
These are the obituaries and funeral arrangements from the Omaha World Herald. Cromer, Amy J. Cromer, 46, of Elkhorn. Funeral Mass, 10:30 a.m. Thursday, Holy Cross Catholic Church. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the Amy Cromer Memorial Fund. Darrington, Catherine E. Darrington, 101 years old, of Council Bluffs. Funeral service Thursday, 11 a.m. at Cutler, O'Neill, Meyer, Woodring, Bayless Park Chapel. Memorials are suggested to Community of Christ Church in Canesville Boulevard, Council Bluffs. Erlbacher, Julie Marie Erlbacher. There are no other notice arrangements here. Heafy, Hoffman, Dwar, Cutler, Beller, Chapler is handling. Gosnell, Marianne Jane Gosnell, 81. Memorial service Thursday, April 27th at 6:30 p.m. Kramer Funeral Home is handling it. Mustakas, Spyro G. Mustakas, 96. He was a veteran. Services are Thursday, April 27th at 11 a.m. at All Holy Spirit Greek Orthodox Church. Interment at Evergreen Memorial Park with military honors by Millard American Legion Post 374 and VFW Post 8334. Memorials to All Holy Spirit Greek Orthodox Church or Boy Scouts of America. Brian David O'Malley, 52. Service will be held on Brian's birthday, April 26th at 2 p.m. at West Lawn Hillcrest Funeral Home in lieu of flowers. Memorials to the American Diabetes Foundation. Ryan, John J. Ryan, 86. Memorial Mass for John will be at 10 a.m. Saturday, April 29th at St. John's Church, Creighton University. In lieu of flowers, memorials to KBNO Radio, St. John's Church, or the Stevens Center. Salyards, David P. Salyard, 61 of Omaha. Funeral service, 1:30 p.m. Thursday at Roeder Mortuary. Memorials may be given to the Jack and Mary Alice Snyder Fund, care of the University of Nebraska Foundation. Simmons, Gary W. Simmons, 61 of Omaha. Funeral service 10 a.m. Thursday at Roeder Mortuary. Tyler J. P. Holgren Loads, Tyler. I'm going to start over with that one. Tyler Jill P. Holdren Loads, Tyler, 64. Memorial service Wednesday, April 26th at 11 a.m. at Thanksgiving Lutheran Church, Bellevue. Memorial suggested to Thanksgiving Lutheran Church. And finally, White, Cheryl Elaine White, 72. Memorial service Thursday, April 27th at 10 a.m. at Evergreen Memorial Park. Memorials are suggested to Little White Dog Rescue. Listeners' memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and will go a long way in keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as donor's choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent to Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205 in Omaha, Nebraska, 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book Network listener and supporter.
He plays a thing.
Okay, so we're off.
I think so. But they're broadcasting us.
I know, I thought about that. I'm going to get some water real quick. Oh, well.
It's all right.
So do you want to start with editorials?
Yes, I will, but if there are any.
Okay, so I always got plenty.
Yeah. I don't, where are the stupid letters? Maybe only one page. Oh, A7. I am on one page.
If you ever want to start earlier with the obits, we just start early.
Oh, but
thought,
you didn't have very many.
No.
But I thought.
I thought, oh my gosh, we're gonna. That's why I kept reading short stuff, because they kept thinking, oh, she'll stop now and start. But you got onto the butterflies and we were off. I love that story though.
Yeah.
I have told the NRD, plant more butterfly. More milkweeds. That's what they like. And now I see they're going to do it.
That is good. We seem to have one letter.
Okay. Well, I can start if you want me to.
No, I'll read it.
Okay.
And
I'll go for it.
Is it our turn? Thank you, Paul. We're back now. Thank you, listeners, for staying with us. There's only one letter to the editor today in the Lincoln Journal-Star, and I'm going to read it now. It's from Lisa Fleider of Lincoln. She says, LB 327, with the rewrite of Section 514, is an attempt to defund family planning facilities that receive Title X funds to provide reproductive health services to uninsured or underinsured individuals. Title X does not pay for abortions, and no Title X recipients provide abortions except for Planned Parenthood. With that being said, the rewrite of Section 514 would limit freestanding family planning clinics from receiving Title X funds. This does include family planning facilities in Lincoln, such as Family Health Services and Planned Parenthood, People's Family Health Services in North Platte, Central Health in Grand Island and Kearney, Planned Parenthood in Omaha, and Family Health Services in Southeast Nebraska. I personally feel that we, as family planning providers in Nebraska, are being lumped in with and associated with Planned Parenthood in this attempt to defund abortion providers. I would hope that anyone who has questions about this rewrite would completely research and review what family planning does, and then make your decision about the rewrite. Please do not take away the services that we provide to the approximately 6,500 patients that sought our help with their reproductive health care needs in 2016. Again, Lisa Fleider of Lincoln.
And these are the letters today to the Public Pulse in the Omaha World Herald. The first one is from Bill Allen of Blue Springs, Nebraska. Nebraska state legislators voted not to renew liquor licenses for the 4 beer outlets in White Clay, Nebraska. It won't make a bit of difference on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. If people are addicted, they will get their beer. Nebraska can just hope the nearest beer outlet is in South Dakota, not Nebraska. If people die going long distances to or from getting beer, they should die in South Dakota, since South Dakota acts like it's Nebraska's problem and doesn't seem interested in solving it. If Pine Ridge residents get beer from bootleggers, hope they do it north of the border. This letter is from Lee Sarah Lecomte of Blair, Nebraska. Nebraska State Prisons Director Scott Frakes blames recent prison violence on gangs. It is more likely that violence is the cause of increased gang membership. Gangs offer a sense of belonging and a semblance of social order, but most importantly, they provide protection, which prison officials have failed to do. An inmate may feel, with good cause, that his or her best chance of living long enough to complete a sentence is gang membership. Instead of finger pointing, we should be working on improving the way prisons are governed. This letter is from Dennis Bruns of Omaha. Has anyone considered a simple solution for the streetcar problem? Number 1, determine the route and stops for streetcars. Number 2, use new state-of-the-art buses instead. Number 3, easily expand as necessary. Number 4, save a huge amount of money. This letter is from James D. Carlson of Silver Creek, Nebraska. I am a farmer and landowner in Polk County, Nebraska, whose land is in jeopardy of irreversible consequences if the Trans-Canada Keystone XL pipeline is allowed to be buried through my farm. You see, if the pipeline ruptures and spills into my soil, the diluted bitumen, which is denser than water, will sink. There's no method on God's green earth that anyone could use to recover it. My family, farm, and lifestyle would be severely affected. 5 generations of my family have tilled and taken care of this soil for 101 years, and it's more fertile than ever. The saying is that they are not making any more farmland, so we have to diligently take care of the land we have. Our governor, our U.S. senators and representatives, and most county officials involved do not understand why I would not accept almost $250,000 to allow TransCanada to bury a 36-inch pipeline carrying 35 million gallons a day of toxic sludge through my farm a few feet above the Ogallala Aquifer. This is my source of water, one that every human being, animal, or plant needs to sustain life. It is the water I need to help feed the world. From Virgil Patlin, Sr. of Omaha, former State Senator Heath Mello should be ashamed. Many U.S. veterans died fighting socialism all over the world, including Nebraska Vietnam vets. Now Mello stands with Bernie Sanders, a hardcore socialist. Every veteran should vote against Mello for mayor of Omaha. What next, Senator Mello? A rally with Jane Fonda? What a shame. And finally, from Deanna Riley of Omaha. Thank you, Heath Mello, for not being afraid to state that you are pro-life. I am a Democrat, and I am pro-life. Yes, pro-choice, that is possible. I am for life. I am for the immigrant, the prisoner, school children, preschoolers, the elderly, and the unborn. I am against the death penalty, building a wall between our country and our neighbors to the south, and the rampant proliferation of guns. I think Citizens United was one of the worst decisions made by the Supreme Court, but I am still pro-life. I think there are many of us against abortion. It is a desperate and awful choice. So please stop trying to push all of us Democrats into one narrow corner. There was a time when I could comfortably be part of the ideals of this party. I saw the Democrats as a party of compassion and a party for the everyday worker. A party that figured out nothing is as simple as no new taxes fixes. Now, according to activists, we all have to agree with all the issues that surround abortion. Not so. I will never promote the practice. I can't. I have seen too many ultrasounds of my children and grandchildren, and I hope you can demonstrate a little bit of tolerance for the views of others. I believe it would be good for the Democratic Party.
Pardon me, thank you. I've discovered that I missed two different additional letters in the Lincoln Journal-Star, and I'm going to read them now. This first one is from Jim Murray of Papillion. He says, as I used to do with C-SPAN and congressional viewing, I spend TV time during the day watching our Nebraska representatives in action. I am amazed they don't have the common sense to realize that their poor behavior in the background of the speaker reflects so badly on their integrity. 90% of them seem to be joking with each other, on the phone, playing computer games, or wasting time. They are certainly not paying attention to the work of the people. It seems like the worst of the group are from Omaha, followed closely by the Lincoln folks. Watch the inattention in the background, and you may rethink your next vote. Jim Murray of Papillion. And this other letter, finally, is from Dan Zichek of Lincoln. Closing down the White Clay liquor stores is just a bandage on the real issue at hand in the Pine Ridge Reservation. He refers to locals' problems won't end in April 20th World Lincoln Star. The problem is not going away by simply closing down liquor sales in White Clay. What will happen now is the addicted people will travel the 20 miles to Rushville or the many other towns around that sell alcohol, and bootlegging will undoubtedly substantially increase. We would literally need to shut down alcohol sales in a 500-mile radius around the reservation to even make a dent, and even then it is questionable. This is a complex problem, and at the heart of the issue is the behavior of the addicted people. Not addressing this issue will guarantee the problem behavior will continue. Highway 87 might just become the deadliest highway in the county. That was from Don Zichek of Lincoln.
Here's a column opinion from Mike Flood, who was the former speaker of the Nebraska legislature. It's about the pipeline protests. The Nebraska Public Service Commission has scheduled hearings on the permit for the construction of the Keystone XL pipeline project, with the first scheduled for May 3rd. If you were around places like Lincoln, Grand Island, or Atkinson the last time hearings like these were held, you may recall the spectacle. Opponents and advocates came from across Nebraska and even from Washington, D.C. and Oklahoma. There were rallies outside the hearing rooms, along with big shouting, with big display. Excuse me, I'm going to start over. There were rallies outside the hearing rooms, along with shouting, big truck displays, and armbands worn by the hundreds. By and large, however, these were noisy but peaceful events in keeping with Nebraskans' long tradition of civility, open discourse, and respect for the rule of law. And no matter how we felt about the Keystone XL or pipelines in general, we never considered behaving any other way. However, this time I am concerned that forces are gathering, outside forces, who have let it be known that they are coming here using the approach they applied in North Dakota. Ask anyone who witnessed the protests in North Dakota, and they describe chaos and anarchy. Over a matter of a few weeks, thousands of protesters, some with professional training, descended upon North Dakota with a fury. Paint was thrown on state capitol walls, rocks were thrown at police, shopping malls and infrastructure projects were shut down. Equipment was set on fire, and propane canisters appeared to be weaponized. Even required the state of North Dakota to request law enforcement assistance from other states under the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. Nebraska sent state troopers. Personal threats of harm to police and pipeline workers were followed with environmental destruction. Upon leaving the protest site, so-called water protectors left behind tons of garbage and damage that was so great it may take years to restore. Their parting message was clear: the ends justify the means, and we will destroy the land to save it. I know the good folks up there, and I suspect this was not the North Dakota way of reasonable public discourse, but they had no warning. We do. We believe in the rule of law. We must send a clear message across the country that we won't tolerate anything less. We will do things the Nebraska way.
Thank you, Bev. Here's the editorial from the Lincoln Journal-Star today. Over the past decade, the University of Nebraska-Lincoln has more than doubled its international student enrollment from just over 1,500 students in the 2007-2008 school year to more than 3,200 attending today. The international student enrollment means close to 1 in 8 of UNL's nearly 25,900 students call another country home, and is one of the prime components fueling the university's enrollment growth. That growth, however, seems likely to be stunted in the upcoming year, and anticipated dramatic increase in tuition to compensate for a large cut in state appropriations will almost certainly cut down the number of new students from within the U.S. and abroad. President Donald Trump's proposed ban on immigration from 6 predominantly Muslim countries and accompanying extreme vetting of all immigrants and visa restrictions on travel, re-entry to the U.S., and employment appear to be reducing the number of new students coming to Lincoln from around the world. Our international enrollment is significantly down as a result of the greater environment. I think that is out there around international questions, UNL Chancellor Ronnie Green told the Board of Regents last month. Nebraska isn't alone in that concern. In a survey conducted by the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers, roughly 4 in 10 universities reported the election damaged international recruitment efforts. And last month, 16 Democratic attorneys general joined the legal effort to block implementation of latest version of Trump's immigration ban, citing, among other objections, the impact such a ban would have on international students. The Journal-Star editorial board believes that the ban should continue to be blocked with any immigration issues addressed in less draconian fashion. The extent of the downturn in UNL's international student enrollment won't be known until August. The extensive international application and acceptance process runs until just before school starts. Here's hoping that decline will be slim and that international student enrollment can rebound in subsequent years.
We're going to move now to living and entertainment news. I'm going to start with the recent letters to Amy Dickinson. Dear Amy, my wife and I love the beach. We walk on the beach, kayak, picnic, and in the summer we swim. When it's hot and the beach is crowded, my wife invariably asks me, "Are you checking out that girl in the bikini?" I always say no, which is a lie she sees right through. An argument ensues, dampening our otherwise beautiful day. I am in my 50s. I have no delusions of a long-term future with a young girl or anyone else on the beach, but I love to look at attractive females. I try, apparently unsuccessfully, to be discreet, but my natural instinct is to stand up and applaud. I know I sound like a dirty old man, but I doubt that I am alone. So, how can I be honest and not hurt my wife? And can we still go to the beach? The beach. Dear lying, I think many of us in middle age passively admire young and beautiful people without being lascivious. Your wife might be actually in this category, but from your own description, you are not. And so, no, I won't help you to find a way to check out women in front of your wife. You say you sound like a dirty old man, and you're right, you do. In fact, I read this letter to one of my daughters who rolled her eyes and said, ugh, gross. I doubt that was the reaction you were going for. All attractive females know when they're being checked out. Some may enjoy the attention, but even if they do, the last thing they want on their day at the beach is a round of applause. In this context, your wife's feelings are more important than theirs or yours because she is the one you're married to. She is presumably the woman you're going to go home with. You have a choice here. Either stop checking out women or come clean when she catches you and risk an argument. The first choice will make your beautiful beach days continue for many years. The second will probably lead to her turning these beach trips into solo expeditions. Stop blaming your wife for being frustrated about your inability to keep your eyes in your head. And here's a letter. Dear Amy, after nearly 15 years of marriage, my wife and I have yet to agree on the cleaning of dishes. I was taught growing up that dishes are not to be left in the sink. My wife grew up in a family that leaves everything in the sink until, I suppose, someone had time to clean up. If I don't touch the dishes she's left in the sink, she will clean them within a few hours. The problem is that she gets mad at me whenever I'm washing one of my own dishes and I ignore hers. I don't mind cleaning other people's dishes now and then, and we have young kids, which complicates the problem. But I resent being expected to clean her dishes nearly every time I go to the sink, while she is never left to clean mine. Any thoughts? Feeling dished. Dear Dished, you are facing an all too common domestic question. One obvious solution is that you want the dishes washed now, then you should wash them. All of them. I think you know it's obnoxiously passive-aggressive to only do your own. You two are married parents, not Craigslist roommates. You should each step up and do things that need to be done without keeping score. In my household, whoever cooks doesn't have to do the dishes. It's a pretty simple equation. Getting them washed before breakfast the next day seems like a reasonable goal. I'm sure there are things you do or don't do around the house that drive your wife crazy too. So maybe it's time to revisit the distribution of labor. Also, get your children involved. The kids in my life love having jobs. I have a photo of my 5-year-old nieces loading the dishwasher with such precision and glee you'd think they were on a trip to Disneyland. I'd love to hear from other readers here. How do you settle household chore debates? And finally, here's a letter from Grateful for My Steps. Dear Amy, the letter from Disturbed Dad literally made me sick. This dad was trying to teach his young children that step families aren't real relatives. Thank you for re-educating him. Dear Grateful, many readers responded as you have. Thank you.
Thanks, Bev. Now we'll turn to ask the doctors in the Lincoln Journal-Star. These are doctors Elizabeth Coe and Eve Glazier. Dear Doctor, about a year ago, when I turned 44, I started using reading glasses that I purchased at the drugstore. They seemed to work just fine. Now I need a stronger pair, and I wonder whether using them has weakened my eyes. Dear reader, we're happy to reassure you that using over-the-counter readers, or any kind of corrective lenses for that matter, will not weaken or damage your eyesight. However, the fact that you find you need to move to a higher level of magnification does indicate that your vision is changing. And considering that many adults begin to experience changes to their ability to see clearly at close range after age 40, it's not all that surprising. This change in close focus is known as presbyopia, which occurs when the lens within your eye gradually becomes less flexible. This is believed to be the result of age-related changes to the proteins within the natural lens in the eye and to the tissues of the surrounding muscles that cause the lens to focus. The loss in flexibility to the natural lens results in blurred vision when doing close focus activities such as reading. While you could certainly opt to buy a new pair of drugstore reading glasses with higher level of magnification, we recommend that you use this shift in vision as an opportunity to visit an eye care professional. One-size-fits-all reading glasses are certainly affordable, and a quick trip to the store is more convenient than a medical appointment. But chances are the generic readers will not correct your eyesight to the highest level of accuracy. That's because for most of us, the prescription in each eye is at least slightly different. Many individuals also have a small amount of astigmatism correction in their prescriptions as well. Wearing the wrong glasses can lead to headache and fatigue as your eyes strain to achieve optimal focus. A comprehensive eye exam not only yields a corrective prescription tailored to your specific needs, it also includes several other tests to detect vision problems, assess eye health, and screen for eye disease. For example, your eye care professional will use special drops to dilate your pupil and examine the important tissues at the back of the eye, including the retina, the macula, and the optic nerve. A test of the pressure within the eye, known as tonometry, screens for glaucoma. If you already wear glasses to correct farsightedness, you have the option of blending the two prescriptions in a pair of bifocals, trifocals, or progressive lenses. A pair of multi-vision glasses for life on the go and a pair of reading glasses for sustained close work will give you the best of both worlds. If you prefer contact lenses, multifocal contacts correct near, intermediate, and far vision. Age-related changes to vision, once begun, will continue. However, these changes can occur so gradually that they may be difficult to notice. That's why it's important to schedule regular eye exams and safeguard your vision. Send your questions to askthedoctors@mednet.ucla.edu.
They're about the size of your kid's Schwinn. The engines aren't much more powerful than your neighbor's weed whacker. And the last time they were popular, really popular, lava lamps were a thing. Yes, we're talking mopeds, the quirky motorized bikes from the 1970s and 80s that are buzzing their way back onto the streets of Omaha and beyond. Omaha has an enthusiastic and growing number of moped riders who love these funky two-wheelers, even if they do sound like a grass trimmer on steroids and top out at 30 miles an hour. When I get on a moped, said Omaha rider Dasha Sudar, I just have this huge smile on my face. Did we mention that these things still have pedals? More on that later. There are even a few local gangs like the Dead Possums and the Kit Kats, basically groups of moped-loving friends who come together for rides. Part of the appeal is nostalgia. Rather, riders say cruising on mopeds make them feel like a kid. And the bikes have a lovable quality. Some riders even go so far as to name their mopeds. Sudar calls one of hers, Tito. Yes, she has more than one. The most popular mopeds and the bikes you see around Omaha are vintage models from the 1970s and 80s. That makes these beauties even cooler. But mopeds aren't just cool, they're practical. You can squeeze out 80 miles per gallon. And while you need a regular driver's license, you don't need a motorcycle license, registration, or even a plate. They're small and light enough, about 100 pounds, to park at the bike rack. If you break down, you can heave it into a car trunk for a lift home. Try doing that with a Harley. Plus, they don't cost a bundle. You can get a good used one, for about $700 to $1,000. Mopeds are attention getters, and not just because of the noisy engines. Car passengers snap pictures and shoot video as mopeds buzz along. People smile and wave or flash a thumbs up just because the bikes look so unusual. Rider Benjamin Piper says he gets peppered with questions whenever he pulls his bike up to a restaurant or store. What is that? People ask. Next question, how much would you sell it for? Moped riders ooze a certain hang-loose vibe, think laid-back surfer, so they welcome the questions and stares, and they don't take themselves too seriously. As one rider put it, mopeds are motorcycles for nerds. Edward Manhart, who's 6'3" and 180 pounds, admits he looks ridiculous perched on his moped, kind of like a circus bear on a trike. We all laugh at ourselves for riding mopeds, he said. Cruising at 30 miles per hour in a car doesn't seem fast, he said, but hit that speed on a low-slung moped and it feels like you're flying. Manhart opened a moped shop near 42nd and Leavenworth Streets last fall, and it doubles as a gathering spot for riders. They trade tips on repairs and meet there on rides, as they did on a recent Saturday. When the 20 riders fired up their bikes, it sounded like an orchestra of radio-controlled airplanes. There's a reason riders call themselves a swarm when they ride in a group. The 50 cubic centimeter engines sound like gas-powered bumblebees. Manhart started about 8 years ago with a scooter, which is more conventional looking than a moped and can go faster. The scooter was okay until a friend made a suggestion. He's like, "Dude, you should get a moped," Manhart said. As soon as he rode one, Manhart was hooked. He's always been mechanically minded, so opening a shop to service and sell mopeds was a good fit. Manhart said that when he got his first moped in 2010, Omaha had a handful of riders. Now there are dozens, and the count is rising. Omaha has hosted a moped rally the past 3 Junes. In 2016, the Rally of the Corn drew nearly 100 riders from Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Illinois. Oh yeah, back to those pedals. Unlike cars and motorcycles, which have 4-stroke engines, mopeds have simple 2-stroke motors powered by a mix of gas and oil, just like a weed whacker, chainsaw, or leaf blower. Moped riders use the pedals to crank the engine to start it. Manhart pointed out that the earliest motorcycles in the late 1800s were actually bicycles mounted with engines, so the whole pedal thing on mopeds kind of makes sense. In a pinch, you could actually propel a moped by pedaling it like a bicycle, but it's a chore. People cruised on mopeds in Europe prior to the 1950s, but mopeds didn't gain big popularity in this country until the 1973 U.S. oil crisis caused rising gas prices and fuel shortages. The gas-sipping moped was just right for the times, and it fit in during the funky 1970s.
Thanks. The headline in the Lincoln Journal-Star reads, Garrison Keillor returning to Pinewood Bowl. Garrison Keillor no longer hosts a weekly radio show, but he continues to share stories from Lake Wobegon in a touring road production. Keillor will bring his Prairie Home Love and Comedy Tour 2017 to Lincoln for an August 12th, 7:30 p.m. performance at the Pinewood Bowl Theater. Tickets go on sale Friday at 10 a.m. Prairie Home Love and Comedy Tour is 2+ hours of stories, love duets, guy noir, cowboys, poetic outbursts, and a singing intermission at which the eager and able-bodied stand and sing around the campfire. Keillor, 74, will perform with vocalist Heather Massey, I think M-A-S-S-E, sound effects genius Fred Newman, and Richard Dworsky and the Roadhounds. Keillor last performed in Lincoln in August 2015 at Pinewood Bowl, just a few months before retiring from a Prairie Home Companion, the weekly public radio show he had hosted since July 1974. Tickets are $95, $85, $69.50, $49, $35, and $19.50, and are subject to applicable fees. Tickets will be available at the Pinnacle Bank Arena box office, 400 Pinnacle Arena Drive, at Ticketmaster.com, or by phone at 800-745-3000. Other Pinewood events this summer include the 1975 on May 19th, Willie Nelson on June 7th, Styx and the Little River Band June 9th, Modest Mouse on June 10th, Toby Mac and Crowder June 16th, Two Cellos on July 26th, Jim Gaffigan on July 28th, I Love the 90s Tour August 10th, and Joe Bonamassa on August 20th.
From Grand Island, Nebraska. Dex whimpers, employing all his might. I'm going to start over again. This is start over day here. Dex whimpers, employing all his furry might to use his back legs to go forward. He wants to walk on all fours, as he once did. He wants to run up to the Vienna sausages and chomp them right away, but he can't, not yet. Dex is a German Shepherd in the care of the Central Nebraska Humane Society. He is one of the first animals to benefit from the agency's new HEART program. HEART stands for Helping Emergency Animal Recovery and Treatment. The HEART Fund is used for the cost of additional medical services that some of the shelter animals need beyond the medical care that the Humane Society provides. Executive Director Lori Dethloff said the Humane Society provides basic care such as behavior and health assessment and spaying and neutering costs. The HEART Fund covers extra things such as x-rays, blood and urine tests, surgery, amputation, and treatment of broken bones. The money comes from donations. Dethloff said the program offers animals more care while offering people a specialized opportunity to help the animals. Dex was recovered by animal control from an unsafe environment to which law enforcement responded. When he arrived at the shelter, Dex had kidney problems, head trauma, and many sores on his body and was taken into emergency care for his wounds. We didn't even know if he would survive with where he was at, she said. But there was just something about the look in his eyes. Even though he was weak and emaciated, and you could see the sores, you could see the soul. He was ready to fight. She estimates Dex to be about 7 years old, but he could be younger or older. Teeth are used in estimating a dog's age, and Dex's teeth were in very bad condition. From what we know, he hasn't had an easy life, Dethloff said. An MRI for Dex at Kansas State University would cost $1,500, so that was out of the question. She said she and others at the Humane Society have been doing everything feasible to care for Dex and make him comfortable. He stays in her office where he has a place to lounge and rest. Staff members take him out for therapy so he can regain his strength. His back legs are nearly paralyzed. A dog wheelchair was recently donated to Dex, making it easier for him to try to move. His body is supported, so it's easier for him to try to walk. Workers motivate him by holding Vienna sausages short distances away so Dex can walk to get the treat. Dethloff said he has been doing better each day since they got him in February, about the time they decided to start the program. He's got the desire, she said, of Dex. Though Dex is one of the most severe cases and part of the reason the program was started, many other animals have benefited. A full-time veterinarian on staff makes caring for these animals much more feasible. Dethloff said the program has helped pregnant cats and dogs, dogs with mange, and others. It isn't designated toward abused animals, although there are some of those animals that need more care. The program also helps animals from puppy mills or unclaimed pets that have physical medical needs. She said, on average, animals are in the HEART program for about 6 weeks. Dex, however, will have a longer recovery period.
Thank you. I'm going to turn now to business news. This is from the Associated Press from New York. Vive le rally. U.S. stocks joined a worldwide surge higher Monday after the first round of France's presidential election raised expectations that the European Union will hold together. The candidate seen as pro-business won the most votes Sunday, and many investors expect him to win a runoff against the remaining anti-EU candidate, which is set for May 7th. Prices for gold, treasuries, and other investments that signal a fear in the market all sank, while a popular gauge for measuring investor fear eased by the biggest margin since summer of 2011. It's good news, and now investors have a reason to focus on the fundamentals in Europe, which are strong, said Luca Paolini, chief strategist at Pictet Asset Management, a UK-based firm that manages $165 billion in client assets. The Standard & Poor's 500 index jumped 25.46 points, or 1.1%, to $2,374.15. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 26.13, or 1.1%, and the NASDAQ Composite gained 73.3, or 1.2%. Coming into Sunday's election in France, several candidates railed against the European Union, one of the world's dominant trading partners. A victory for one of those candidates would have followed the path set by last year's Brexit vote by Britain to exit the European Union and the U.S. election of President Donald Trump as a kick in the face to the globalist free trade worldview.
Once thought to be a problem largely of smokers and people with poor diet and exercise habits, Coronary artery disease, or buildup of plaque inside the arteries, is something that virtually all adults eventually develop, research now indicates. But doctors haven't had the tools to determine whether people have the kind of non-life-threatening disease that they can live with into old age, or a more dangerous, unstable version that could lead to a sudden heart attack or stroke. Several years ago, 3 researchers at the University of Nebraska Medical Center found a biomarker that could help to differentiate between the 2 types and develop a simple blood test based on that biomarker. Now, a Toronto-based business accelerator has launched a startup company called Health Check Diagnostics that will work to take the test through the commercialization process and, if all goes well, to a doctor's office near you. Dr. Daniel R. Anderson, an associate professor of medicine in the cardiovascular division of UNMC's College of Medicine, said several existing tests look for elevated levels of inflammation, an immune response that doctors now know is part of the equation in coronary artery disease, not to mention many others. But until now, he said, nothing had been available that could gauge the risk that 30 or 40-year-olds might face years down the road, or help doctors determine which of them required even more aggressive prevention and treatment, he said. That's a concern given that several studies indicate that 70% of all adults have atherosclerotic disease by the time they're in their 3rd or 4th decade. In the emergency room, such a test also could help indicate whether patients who have arrived with chest pain have pain of another type, say pleurisy, or are in imminent danger of a heart attack. This is the first time we thought, hey, this is something that might actually predict a cardiovascular event, Anderson said. Fellow researchers Greg Thiel, a professor of internal medicine, and Michael Dury, a research coordinator for the Medical College's Rheumatology and Immunology Division, initially identified the biomarker, a naturally occurring molecule that's a strong indicator of inflammation, while studying inflammatory conditions such as arthritis and alcoholic liver disease. The researchers contacted Anderson, and the 3 began looking more closely at cardiovascular disease, particularly the hardening and narrowing of arteries known as atherosclerosis. HealthCheck, meanwhile, is looking for investors, officials said. Anderson said those next steps include additional testing to validate the test and then take it to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to demonstrate that it will do what the researchers claim.
Thank you. A Nebraska farmer's lawsuit against Swiss seed giant Syngenta AG over its genetically modified corn is the first of thousands to go to court. Monday's trial in state court in Minneapolis involving Morse Bluff farmer Daniel Mensick will mark the first test case over Syngenta's decision to introduce a genetically engineered corn seed variety to the U.S. market before China approved it for imports. Mensick, who has a 300-acre farm near the Saunders County town about 50 miles north of Lincoln, claims he lost $125,000 in sales because of Syngenta's mishandling of the GMO corn Viptera. He's also asking a jury to hit Syngenta with punitive damages for pushing ahead with the GMO rollout, even though executives knew it could have a devastating financial consequence for U.S. farmers. Viptera has a trait called MIR162 that protects against pests such as earworms, cutworms, armyworms, and corn borers. Syngenta invested over $100 million and 15 years in developing the genetically modified corn seeds. With U.S. government approval, Syngenta began selling Viptera in the United States for the 2011 growing season, but China didn't approve it until December of 2014. Court papers show that Syngenta initially assured stakeholders that China would approve MIR162 in time for the 2011 crop, but the date kept slipping. One expert working for the plaintiffs estimated the damage to U.S. farmers to be $5.77 billion. Another pegged it at $4.68 billion.
We're going to go now to sports. We'll start with the story about the Creighton Blue Jays. Creighton's coach has had a blast watching his team rush out of the dugout after walk-off victories, and he's enjoyed seeing all of the smiles, high fives, and fist bumps lately. And he's happy to hear the booming locker room tunes that accompany these post-win celebrations. But handling success isn't always easy, especially for an improving ball club that has experienced this sort of sustained run for the first time. The Jays have won 10 consecutive games. It's the longest active winning streak in the country and the longest for the program in 10 years. Ed Cervais wants them to enjoy it, certainly, but not too much. I think it's important to keep them grounded, he said. Cervais likes what he's seen so far. Creighton had a statement weekend against St. John's when it took 2 of 3 from the then number 14 Red Storm. Knocked off rival Nebraska, which had won 9 of the last 10 in the series. CU has won 3 times at the last at-bat and put together a 6-run 9th inning to complete a wild comeback at Georgetown, all in the past 3 weeks. It's been quite the midseason turnaround for the Jays, who never could quite put together the facets of the game in the starting 1 and 11. They dropped games at nearly every variety, but they accepted the reality then. They needed to improve, and they're still carrying that same mentality. These guys understand, hey, that was fun. It was important that we won. We're going to celebrate, but not to excessive states, Cervais said. These guys have been pretty grounded. It's our job as coaches to make sure they stay that way. It's the veterans' responsibility too. Senior closer David Gerber, senior third baseman Bryce Onley, and sophomore catcher Michael Imodi are the vocal leaders who've been most commonly referenced by teammates. They were the ones spreading an encouraging message back in February, and they're issuing a challenging refrain to the guys now in April. A 10-game winning streak. It's a little exciting, junior right-hander Keith Rogala said, but we've got some great leaders back there. They keep telling us to keep plugging away because Creighton has not yet reached its potential. CU's benefited lately from superb efforts from its starting pitchers. Rogala was named the Big East Pitcher of the Week Monday after striking out 10 Villanova batters in 8 innings Sunday, his second such award this year. But even on Friday, the Jays, 18-16, 8-1, didn't have the same focus and spark during pregame warmups as they usually do, according to Cervais. They stumbled about at the plate early on in that game and made a few mistakes defensively in a 4-run inning that nearly cost them. Sunday's game played out somewhat summarily on offense. Cervais said his guys watched too many hittable pitches sail by, and they ended up offering the ones left off the plate. That will be a point of emphasis this week when Creighton faces Wichita State Tuesday before matching up with 2016 NCAA tournament participant Xavier this weekend. Wednesday's game at South Dakota State was postponed because of an inclement weather forecast. It's going to be a real challenging week this week to keep everybody to get fresh going into a huge weekend, Cervais said.
Thanks. From the Lincoln Journal-Star, Mark Wasikowski was in need of pitching. In his first year as Purdue head coach, he knew it might be a wild ride. Purdue finished 2-22 in the Big Ten Conference before Wasikowski arrived. We didn't have any pitching when I took over, he said. I knew there were going to be some glaring weaknesses. Sophomore Gareth Stroh, 4.61 earned run average, is trying to change that. The Gibbon native earned Big Ten Player of the Week honors after allowing just 2 hits in a 4-1 victory against Illinois on Saturday. Stroh retired the first 12 batters of the game and 27 of the 29 he faced. The Southpaw also became the first Boilermaker since 2013 to earn a win and a save in the same week after Stroh came into the 9th inning for Purdue in his first relief appearance of the season, a 10-7 win over Indiana State last Wednesday. Stroh is just a guy that is really a worker, Wasikowski said. He's a big mentality guy, and that is big for us. He mixes a lot of pitches up. It's a trait that Purdue coach first saw when he found Stroh in the Northwoods League for the Wisconsin Rapids Rafters after he pitched his freshman season at Coffeyville Community College in Kansas. After high school, I kind of wanted to get away, Stroh said. I wanted to go somewhere where they wanted me. It's kind of the perfect marriage with Purdue. Gibbon doesn't have a sanctioned high school baseball team, but Stroh helped lead the Shelton Gibbon to a Class C Legion baseball state title in 2014. Stroh, who was born in Lincoln, had some looks after attending a Wichita State camp after high school, but he chose the junior college route. After Wasikowski took the helm at Purdue, the first thing on the agenda was try to find some pitchers. Through word from some contacts about Stroh in the North Woods League, Wasikowski made the trip to see what Stroh had to offer. We went up and liked what we saw, the coach said of Stroh, who earned a spot in the rotation and has been serving as Purdue's regular starter on Saturdays. It's kind of an honor, Stroh said. I showed up here, did my thing, and competed in the fall. It's a cool feeling. Since then, Stroh has seemed to be where he belongs, with fans in black and gold cheering for him from the seats of Alexander Field to turning Husker fans in central Nebraska to Boilermaker fans on Saturdays. Being far from home is one thing that got to Stroh at first. He didn't have his friends or family to talk him through some of the rough patches. My roommates and coaches really came through with the help, Stroh said. They were big in psychological growth. Stroh won't have a chance to play in front of the Nebraska crowd this year since the Huskers and Boilermakers don't meet in the regular season, but that's okay for the Southpaw. It's a cool feeling to know that people back home are cheering for me, Stroh said. I'm just out here trying to do my own thing.
As one of the most successful receivers in Nebraska football history, Jordan Westerkamp knew a little something about adjusting routes and finding ways to make things work. The last 4 months have been a little like that too. Westerkamp has taken an indirect path to NFL draft week, forced upon him by December 15th surgery for a left knee injury suffered during bowl preparations. He still traveled to the East-West Shrine game, but only went through interviews with teams. He never received the NFL Combine invitation that would likely have come with good health, and he watched his Nebraska teammates go through their pro day workouts on March 14th because he wasn't quite back yet. He just tried to make the best of his situation rather than get down about it. I'm a mentally tough guy, and I understand that things happen, that injuries happen, and you can't feel sorry for yourself, he said. You just got to keep working harder and harder. The setbacks have driven the already ultra-motivated Westerkamp, but it also made it difficult to get a good read on his draft prospects. For a player who likes to be in control of the situation, it's required loosening the grip a little these last few weeks. But it's the NFL, so I'm just excited about it, Westerkamp said. Wherever or whenever I go, I'm going to be excited about it. The Westerkamp detour started with his December injury coming in on a non-contact drill after he took a handoff on a reverse. He damaged cartilage, which might have meant only a few weeks off. The longer healing process would come with a chipped bone that required a bone graft. My goal was to be ready for pro day, but it was probably an unrealistic one, Westerkamp said. I knew that, but I kept it just to keep me working. He went through an abbreviated workout on April 6th with a half dozen NFL teams attending. The 6-foot, 201-pound Westerkamp said the feedback he heard from Kansas City and the Los Angeles Chargers was encouraging. I thought I did real well, he said. Obviously, coming back from the injury, the numbers weren't out of this world, but it was more to show people I could get out there and move. A week later, Westerkamp went through a private workout for the Chicago Bears, not far from his home in Lombard, Illinois. Westerkamp says, every day I feel a little better, and his focus has turned to getting his conditioning and endurance back to where he wants them. NFL teams can see plenty of Westerkamp's game tape. He finished with 167 career catches, 2,474 receiving yards, and 18 touchdowns. He said his agent, Eugene Lee, told him 80 to 90% of NFL teams' evaluations would come from that college film, words he tried to remember as 58 receivers were going through work at the NFL Combine in February. The Combine just puts you on a bigger stage, Westerkamp said. It's just kind of how it goes. If I were healthy, I know I'd be there. Westerkamp, who earned a degree in management in December, has bounced around a lot the last few months, working out in Lincoln, at home, and at Bomarito Performance Systems in Davie, Florida. He's been encouraged by the volume of recent phone calls from teams asking how he's doing or about contact information during the draft. It's hard to say if he can join Kenny Bell, Quincy Enunwa, and Niles Paul, recent Husker receivers taken in the draft, but Westerkamp is ready to run whatever pattern might get him to the next level. When you have an injury, there's so much extra you have to do, but that's what I love, he said. I love working my tail off. My core is just hard work, and an injury happens, and you just got to get back.
Thanks, Bev. Here's a story in the Journal Star about prep girls tennis. From Omaha, Omaha Marion's Julia King reigned supreme in the wind at number 1 singles in the 16-team Millard West Invitational Girls Tennis Tournament at the Koch Family Tennis Center Monday. Lincoln Southeast proved at the mid-season meet that the Knights are ready to defend their Class A state crown from a year ago. Behind 2016 state champion Fidan Ibrahimov's second-place finish at number 1 singles and a gold medal performance from Abby Peterson and Katie Whitehead at number 2 doubles, the Knights edged out Lincoln East 86-84 for the team title. We use April as a building month to get ready for the big meets in May, but I like where we are right now, said Southeast Coast Chris Salem, whose team also won the Omaha West Side Invitational earlier this month. We're playing well, but there's a lot of room for improvement. I'm excited about the potential this team has. Peterson and Whitehead posted an 8-3 victory over Papillion La Vista's Tessa Hurst and Olivia Boudreau in the finals, their second win of the season over the Monarch duo. East's Justine Linscott made it a Lincoln sweep of the number 2 division gold medals with an 8-1 triumph over the Monarchs' Jaden Moore in the number 2 singles final. King used a quick start, then fought off a late charge by Ibrahimov to claim the number 1 singles final 8-4, her third win of the season over the Southeast junior, who beat her in last year's state final. With winds gusting sometimes more than 30 miles per hour, King's steady baseline game and defensive abilities to extend points served her well in those conditions. She improved to 15-2 this spring with her 4 wins Monday, her only losses coming to 2-time Elkhorn South state champion Samantha Mannix and Papillion La Vista's Claire Neal, who did not play Monday because she was competing in the state journalism contest in Norfolk. I don't like the wind, but it does favor my game a little more and bothers my opponents more than it bothers me, said King, a sophomore who was playing with a heavy heart Monday, still grieving the death of her grandfather last week. I knew I had to use a lot of topspin to bring the ball with the wind to my back and hit through it and try to keep deep going into the wind, King added. Ibrahimova overcame a 6-3 deficit in the semifinals to post a 9-7 win over Lincoln East's Bianca Rademacher, her first win in 3 tries this spring against the standout freshman. Rademacher bounced back to defeat Kearney's Faith Kowalski 8-4 in the third-place match. Down 3-6, I thought Fidan played some great tennis in the wind and finished strong, Salem said of Ibrahimova, who won the Fremont Invitational Saturday with a win over Neal in the finals. Julia makes you work for everything, and she was just too steady today. Omaha Scots Jonna Lowe and Elia Healy claimed the number 1 doubles title as last year's Class B state runner-up surprise defending Class A state champions Spencer Roach and Morgan Eby of Papillion La Vista 8-5 in the finals.
Serena Williams is briefly back at number 1 in the WTA rankings, despite not having competed since January and with plans to take the rest of 2017 off because she is expecting a baby. Thanks to a calendar quirk, Williams moved up 1 spot Monday from number 2, swapping places with Angelique Kerber. The return to number 1, which gives the 35-year-old American her 317th week there, comes less than a week after Williams let the world know via Snapchat that she is pregnant. The baby is due in the fall, and spokeswoman Kelly Bush Novak said Williams will take the rest of this season off and in turn intends to return to the tour next year. Well, it's noon, and that does it for us today. We hope you've enjoyed listening to us, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks. This is Debbie Eddy saying goodbye for now.
And this is Bev Leidig. See you again soon.
I sure missed that.
I just thought we were off, but God, what a mess today.
I think it was fine. It was all right.
Oh.
Hi, ladies. I'm Susan.
Hi, Susan.
I'm a volunteer too. I work in the front office, so this is the first time I've heard you.
Oh.
You guys are awesome.
Just laughing about how bad we messed up all day. I'm just like, the words were just all.
I'm like, you do need to teach lessons. No, you were fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you.
Walk through feel that way.
Yeah, we're not afraid to walk out in the room now.
You were
Well, and thank you for volunteering
Oh,
too.
well,
I'm
thank
coming
you.
out. I guess we're gonna stuff envelopes or something today.
I could never do the readings.
Oh,
I said, give me your tedious mind-numbing chores and I'll stuff envelopes. I'll do all. Well, you'll hate this. We're putting on stickers.
oh, wait. Okay. Well, I told Sybil, yeah, I could stay for a while and help do that. So I'll take a break and then I'll run in there.
Any help to put on stickers is greatly
All right.
appreciated. I mean, it's not a hard job. It's just, it's so boring.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
Oh, well.
But I don't deserve it, but it was nice.
You both
I
deserve
thought it was quite smoothly, really, all things considered.
No, come on.
We're volunteers.
Yeah, really. I told Paul, you get what you pay for. Well, we'll see. I guess, is this your regular day?
Yes, this
Well,
is
then
my
I'm with you now
Okay.
till the middle of June.
That's
So
great.
I'll do better next time. See you later.
Yes, I gotta go rinse my cup out. The flowers you arranged are so pretty.
Oh, thank you. The first person to do what?
I just take some chocolate. Oh, yeah. Find out what we're doing.
Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you're just not real sharp. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it does. It does. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks for the information about me not needing to come in the rest of this week since I have company all week. Yes, it does. Right, right. Right. That's works perfectly. That's right. Looks like you're going somewhere. Oh.
we're out. Okay. That happens. Yeah. Start a list of things to get. later tonight anyway, so. No, I'll get these logged in and I'll.
What's that say?
I got pizza. What is this? Knock knock. Hi. Get pizza. That's what I thought it would have been. Hi.
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 Perfect. Perfect.
Hi.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I take my lifeline.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Now,
Thanks a lot.
what do you guys do here? Is this like a radio talk?
We're a radio station for the blind and visually impaired.
Really?
So we have volunteers that read books and magazines and newspapers for the blind and visually impaired.
So I could volunteer for something like
You
this?
could,
Really?
absolutely.
Huh. I always wanted to be on the radio.
Did you? Well,
Yeah.
Let me give you
That would
some
be
card.
awesome. Yeah.
Come call us and make an appointment.
Okay.
Come in sometime and we'll have you do
Oh,
a
this
test
would be,
read.
yeah, this would be
Yeah,
amazing.
these are, you go in these little rooms here, this is where you would read and record.
Okay.
And then, if you really like it, then we put you on rotation for the newspapers rather
Okay.
live.
Yeah, so how soon could I call you guys?
Whenever you want. Here's the station. You have the station manager who's out there. He's blind. Blind's his birth.
Really?
And he
And
does
you do
all
all
the
this?
production.
No
programs.
way.
Yeah. Very inspiring.
Oh, what a genius.
Yes. it's amazing.
You really, Ryan,
He's been blind since birth,
and
and he does all of it.
that's not what it
Yeah,
is.
and if you come in, when you come in, we'll show you, you'll be able to see him.
And now
What's your
what?
name?
Adam, I'm
Adam,
Adam.
nice to meet you, Adam.
Nice to
Jane.
meet you. Yeah, okay.
No, that's Sybil. Sybil's the volunteer coordinator.
Oh, okay.
She is in charge of all the volunteers.
Okay.
In fact, they're up front right now, we're stepping our newsletter, that's why.
Okay, yeah, this would be amazing.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I'm
Glad
so
to have
excited.
you. All right.
All right, I'm about to call and make an appointment.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
Adam.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Nobody's gonna care. Nobody in their right mind.
How about that?
So, take that for what it's worth. I'm going to the loop.
You may do that.
The loop, the loop.
That could probably be recycled as well.
that's good. Okay.
And I had people over for dinner last night. We had such a, things kind of just went wrong, which always happens when you have guests. I can make a meal for Wally and I perfect, everything's perfect. And this, I said, food knows when your tin reacts. Anyway, we just bring instead. Oh, let's bring.
Okay, pepperoni, hamburger and onion, lemonade, iced tea, and root beer. So,
Hey.
and I forgot the ice.
Oh,
No
hey, I
caffeine.
thought it was, you're not your grandpa's beer. You had that.
I have not. Is it good?
It's so delicious, but it's got alcohol in it.
Yeah, that's
And
what
be
I.
careful because you cannot tell, and it's really, really, really tasty.
Really
Yeah,
good.
it is. It's very good.
alcohol in it.
It's gotta be tasty. Yeah, for sure.
I
Okay.
forgot the ice. Oh, I need cups.
Why are you telling me that?
Well, because I'm just letting you know that I'm not perfect. Well, then please don't.
I
Let me go.
know you want.
Well, you know what that means, we give you extra hours.
I know. Did you cut yourself?
No, it's my
I have a baby.
Oh, now here, I don't want to like hold on to potential. Why not just, I'm just gonna give both his.
There's not one, two.
He does have a big dog bark when he wants to.
Throw it out,
That's a fancy pizza.
And there's chairs all over. There's chairs in here. There's chairs up front.
We sit back in where we're working. Oh, sure. We don't touch anything.
Just, that's why, you may not.
Oh, yeah, really, that's true.
That's kind of my.
Pizza.
There's chairs in my offices too. Just go. I
I'll
could have
just
gotten
stand.
all this.
I just stand.
It
I don't want to
depends.
stand because I'm sitting all the time.
Yeah.
You don't get fired.
I can't
either.
stand
You
the
get
extra
extra
hours.
hours.
She's dancing it ready down.
That's hilarious. Oh, dear Lord.
Are you having, who wants the root beer? Take a root beer. There you go.
I got a thing in my.
Is it a pop thing? Or it's not a twist off?
It's both.
Oh, it is.
Oh, this is not.
Oh,
Well, if it
I
is,
have
but I don't.
Swiss Armor.
I have probably twist. Are you sure that twist?
I don't think it's probably like a beer bottle.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Did she leave it open?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it is. It is like that beer bottle. Yeah.
I got one. Okay, cool.
What is this, brand new?
Is it?
Uh-oh.
You want a different cup?
Another cup? I'll just drink it fast and take a look here.
Okay.
I mean, there aren't really.
That's because they're leftovers.
Okay.
If you want it.
Well, as long as she's got the opener somewhere.
Okay, yeah, I think she did.
Yeah, I was noticing that. I don't know why it's so ugly, but.
Well, here, put it in this one.
Make sure it sits down. It's been fun.
Good. A little fun with your work?
Well, yeah, because, I'm just home alone all day, so talk to the dog, and
I don't have an Arnold Palmer.
I'd probably be reading here more often, but it's clear cuts down
I
for me,
know,
so.
that's what's too bad.
If I could read into my computer and send you the file, I could do it anytime. I could even read any of the books I got at my house or whatever.
I'll need yours, Jane.
Yeah,
I didn't get it,
oh,
I didn't get it, in my, it's not in my purse like it's supposed to
I
be.
used to have one on my keychain, but I don't know if I still do.
Now I gotta think, what the heck?
I got a ton of them at home. I used to, like you said, I used to have one on my Yeah, I always had a Swiss line in my. I love ginger beer.
Ginger beer?
It's big now, yeah, because of the.
It's like, yeah. Ginger's so good. You know, ginger ale. No, no, it's not alcohol, but it's.
I'm gonna drink this. Is this a twist off? No. Is it a pop top? No, I think she's got that.
That's great.
Take the last one. Feels good.
Well, until Jane started working here.